A woman in her late 60s spent just over $3,000 on materials and built a 120-square-foot cabin on a rural lot in northern Georgia last spring. She had never built anything before, but the person who taught her had been constructing shelters and homeless encampments across Atlanta for more than 15 years. These are 10 things that people experiencing homelessness know about building tiny homes that most people completely overlook. And after that, 5 mistakes that will waste your money, your time, and your patience if you do not avoid them. Number 1. Modular panel construction. Walk through any long-standing homeless encampment in Portland, Los Angeles, or Austin, and you will notice something surprising. The shelters are not built like conventional houses. They are built in flat wall panels that bolt, screw, or even zip tie together. This is not random. When you might need to move your shelter at a moment's notice, you cannot afford to build something permanent. So encampment builders figured out decades ago that building walls as separate flat panels, then connecting them on-site, is faster, easier, and more flexible than traditional stick framing. The tiny home industry eventually caught up and started calling it panelized construction. Companies now charge thousands for prefabricated wall panels shipped to your lot. The underlying concept came from people solving the same problem with plywood and 2x4s on a sidewalk. If you are building your own tiny home, consider building your walls flat on the ground first, then tilting them up into place. A single person can raise a wall panel that weighs under 100 pounds, no crane or crew required. You can build all 4 walls in your garage or driveway during the week, load them into a pickup truck on Saturday morning, and have your shell standing by that afternoon. That is the kind of efficiency that turns a 6-month project into a 6-weekend project. But reclaiming time is only half the battle. The other half is reclaiming space, which brings us to number 2. Number 2, elevated sleeping platforms. In a tiny home, your bed is your biggest space thief. A queen mattress takes up about 30 square feet. In a 150 square foot tiny home, that is 20% of your entire living area gone to one piece of furniture. Homeless builders solved this out of pure necessity. In encampments across the country, you will find sleeping platforms raised 3 to 4 feet off the ground, with storage bins, clothing, and supplies tucked underneath. Every single inch underneath that platform serves a purpose. One retired teacher in New Mexico built her sleeping platform from reclaimed 2x6s she got for free from a neighbor's old fence. The platform cost her about $40 in screws and brackets. Underneath it, she fit all of her off-season clothing, a small library of books, her emergency supplies, and a folding chair she pulls out when company visits. Build a sturdy, elevated frame using basic lumber, add a plywood deck, throw your mattress on top, and suddenly you have an entire room underneath your bedroom. Shelving, a small desk, a cooler or seasonal storage. All without losing a single square foot of living area. Now, a lofted bed in a sealed-up box creates a problem that most first-time builders completely ignore. And that is ventilation. Number 3, passive ventilation that actually works. Moisture and mold destroy tiny homes faster than anything else. Most first-time builders seal everything up tight, thinking they are doing the right thing, and then wonder why their walls start growing black spots within 6 months. Shelter builders in humid climates along the Gulf Coast learned this the hard way. Through years of trial and error in bayou country and coastal encampments, they developed a ventilation system that requires 0 electricity and 0 mechanical parts. You cut a low opening near the floor on one side and a high opening near the roof on the opposite side. Hot, moist air rises and exits through the top, while cooler, drier air gets pulled in from the bottom. This is called cross-ventilation, and it is the same principle that architects use in high-end passive house design. An architect charges $5,000 to engineer it. A shelter builder in Houston figured it out with a utility knife and a piece of screen mesh stapled over the opening. That same resourcefulness shows up in how encampment builders handle insulation, which is number 4. Number 4. Insulation on a $0 budget. This one surprises people. Cardboard is actually a decent insulator. Layered corrugated cardboard panels create trapped air pockets between the layers, and trapped air is exactly the principle behind fiberglass insulation. Encampment builders in Denver and Chicago, where winter temperatures drop well below freezing, have been layering cardboard inside walls, stuffing crumpled newspaper into cavities, and wrapping structures in bubble wrap salvaged from dumpsters behind shipping warehouses for years. Does it match the R value of spray foam? Of course not. But the core concept of creating dead air space between your exterior wall and your interior wall works the same whether you are using recycled newspapers or rigid foam board from the hardware store. For your tiny home, that means you do not need to spend $2,000 on spray foam insulation for a 150 square foot structure. Rigid foam board panels, cut and friction fit between studs, give you excellent insulation for a fraction of the price. But all of these building techniques share one thing in common, and it is the lesson that separates the people who actually finish their tiny homes from the ones who are still watching YouTube videos about it 3 years later. Number 5. The good enough mindset that actually gets homes built. This might be the most important lesson on this entire list, and it has nothing to do with construction technique. It is about psychology. The number one reason tiny home projects fail is not money. It is not skill. It is perfectionism. People spend months researching the perfect floor plan, the perfect materials, the perfect paint color. They watch 500 videos and never cut a single board. Homeless shelter builders do not have the luxury of perfectionism. They need a roof over their head tonight, not next year. So they build. The first version is rough. The second version is better. The third version has insulation, a door that actually latches, and a window that opens. They iterate. They improve. They do not wait until they have the perfect plan, because the perfect plan does not exist. A woman in her 50s outside Asheville, North Carolina, started her tiny home build with nothing but a concrete slab, some salvaged lumber, and a library book about basic carpentry. Her first attempt at framing a wall was crooked. She tore it apart and reframed it. Her second attempt was better. By her fourth wall, she was cutting angles like she had been doing it for years. She finished her tiny home in 4 months. It was not on any magazine cover, but it was warm, dry, and completely paid for. If you have been thinking about building a tiny home for more than 6 months and you still have not started, whether you are downsizing, retiring, or just tired of paying rent on a fixed income, this is your problem. Not your budget, not your skill level. Your willingness to build something imperfect and improve it over time. That same practical mindset shows up inside the home too, especially in how experienced builders think about furniture. Number 6. Multi-use furniture born from necessity. Open the door of a well-built encampment shelter, and you will see something that looks surprisingly like a Japanese micro-apartment. A bench that folds down into a sleeping surface. A shelf that doubles as a table when you pull it out from the wall. A milk crate system that functions as both a staircase and a dresser. When your entire living space is the size of a walk-in closet, every object must serve at least 2 purposes, or it does not earn its place inside. The tiny home community adopted this philosophy and now sells convertible furniture for hundreds of dollars per piece. But before you spend that money, ask yourself one question about every piece of furniture. Does this item do at least 2 jobs? If the answer is no, find something that does. A simple plywood box with a hinged lid serves as a bench, a storage chest, and a step stool. $15 in materials from any hardware store. The equivalent convertible storage ottoman from a tiny home catalog runs about $250. Same function, very different price tag. Now, none of this furniture matters if water gets into your structure. which is why the next lesson is one that most amateur builders skip entirely. Number 7. Water management without a plumbing license. Flooding is the #1 structural killer in homeless encampments. When rain hits, water pools around shelters, soaks into the base, rots the wood, and the whole structure can collapse within weeks. Experienced encampment builders learn to dig shallow drainage trenches around the perimeter of their shelters to direct water away from the foundation. They raise the floor off the ground using cinder blocks, stacked pallets, or rows of bricks. This is essentially a simplified French drain system combined with pier foundation principles. The same concepts that professional builders use for deck construction and crawlspace drainage. For your tiny home, before you even think about framing a single wall, you need to address drainage around your build site. Slope the ground away from your foundation. Consider a simple gravel trench around the perimeter. And never, for any reason, set your floor directly on bare earth. A few inches of clearance and some gravel underneath your structure is the difference between a home that lasts 20 years and one that rots in 2 years. If you are learning something from this video and want to take the next step toward actually building, there is a free guide in the description called the Veteran's Blueprint. It was designed for anyone starting from zero, no prior experience required. It walks you through site preparation, foundation options, and your first framing steps, exactly the kind of water management and structural planning we just covered. Completely free. Link is in the description. Speaking of structural planning, this next one is the lesson most amateur builders skip, and it is the one that causes walls to literally fall over. Number 8. Structural bracing that prevents collapse. A rectangular frame, whether it is a wall or a floor, has almost no resistance to sideways force. Push on the corner, and it collapses into a parallelogram shape. This is called racking, and it is why so many garden sheds blow over in windstorms. Encampment builders in tornado-prone areas like Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle figured out through hard experience that a single diagonal brace across a rectangular frame transforms it from flimsy to rigid. This is basic triangle geometry. A triangle cannot change shape without breaking one of its sides. Every wall panel in your tiny home needs at least one diagonal brace running corner to corner, or a full sheet of plywood nailed across the frame, serving the same function as structural sheathing. Skip this step, and the first serious storm will teach you why it matters. That same thinking about preparing for the unexpected applies to how you design the whole structure, which brings us to number 9. Number 9. Quick assembly and tear-down design. Most tiny home builders think in terms of permanence. They pour concrete foundations, install permanent wiring, and frame walls like they are building a house that will stand for 50 years. But many tiny homeowners are building on leased land, family property they may not always have access to, or rural lots where zoning regulations could change. Encampment builders design for the opposite reality. Their structures go up in hours and come down in minutes. Screws instead of nails. Hinged panels instead of fixed walls. Foundations that sit on top of the ground rather than being buried in it. If there is any chance you might need to relocate your tiny home within the next 5 to 10 years, build with disassembly in mind from day one. Use screws everywhere instead of nails. Design your structure in sections that can be unbolted and loaded onto a flatbed trailer. This simple mindset shift could save you tens of thousands of dollars if your living situation changes. And the last building principle ties everything together because it does not matter how cleverly you design your structure if water gets through the roof. Number 10. Weather sealing that professionals charge a fortune for. Watch a homeless shelter builder waterproof a roof, and you will see something interesting. They do not start at the top, they start at the bottom. Every layer of tarp, plastic sheeting, or reclaimed roofing material overlaps downward like fish scales on a trout, so water runs off each layer and never finds a gap to seep through. This is called the shingle principle, and professional roofers use this exact method with asphalt shingles, metal panels, and rubber membranes. The only difference is the price of the materials. For your tiny home, waterproofing is about overlap, direction, and layering, not about expensive materials. A properly overlapped metal roof on a tiny home will outlast a poorly installed expensive roof every single time. Seal from the bottom up. Overlap every joint by at least 2 inches. Apply a bead of silicone caulk at every penetration point where screws, vents, or pipe pass through the roof surface. Now let us talk about the 5 mistakes that will ruin your tiny home project before it even gets off the ground. Mistake number 1. Building too big. This sounds backwards, but it is the most common mistake by far. People think they need 300 or 400 square feet because it sounds small compared to a regular house. But once you start framing a 300 square foot structure, you are dealing with serious lumber costs, a foundation that needs real engineering, and building code requirements that now treat your project like a conventional house. Start at 120 square feet or less. You can always add a covered porch, a detached storage shed, or an addition later. Building too big from the start is the fastest way to blow your budget and never finish the project. Mistake number 2, ignoring zoning and building codes. This one has destroyed more tiny home dreams than any construction error. People buy land, start building, and then discover that their county does not allow structures under a certain square footage, or their lot is zoned agricultural and does not permit residential dwellings, or a neighbor reports the construction to code enforcement, and the whole project gets shut down with a stop work order tacked to the front door. Before you spend a single dollar on materials, walk into your local planning and zoning office and ask 2 questions. What is the minimum square footage allowed for a dwelling on this parcel? And what permits do I need for a structure of this size? 30 minutes of research could save you a year of heartbreak. Mistake number 3, skipping the foundation and moisture barrier. We already covered why water management matters, but this mistake is so common, it deserves its own warning. People set their tiny home directly on the ground, directly on grass, or directly on a gravel pad with no moisture barrier underneath. Within 1 season, moisture wicks up through the floor like a sponge. The subfloor starts to warp, and mold begins growing in places you cannot see until the smell hits you. You need, at minimum, a layer of heavy-duty landscape fabric, or 6 mil plastic sheeting, under your foundation, a few inches of gravel for drainage, and enough clearance between the ground and your floor framing to allow air circulation underneath. This costs under $200 and adds maybe half a day of work. Skipping it will cost you the entire structure within 2 to 3 years. Mistake number 4, overcomplicating electrical and plumbing. First-time builders try to install a full residential electrical panel with 20 circuits and a complete plumbing system with a water heater, multiple fixtures, and a septic connection. For a 150 square foot home, this is wildly excessive. You end up spending more on pipes, wiring, and mechanical systems than you did on the entire structure. A simple solar panel setup with a battery bank, a few LED light fixtures, and a couple of outlets can cover your daily electrical needs for under $1,000. A single kitchen sink with a hand pump or small electric pump, a 5-gallon water container, and a simple gray water drain line can handle your water needs without a plumbing license or a septic system. Start simple. Upgrade later if you need to. Do not let mechanical systems become the reason your project stalls out at 80% finished. Mistake number 5, spending on looks before the structure is livable. Shiplap accent walls, butcher block countertops, copper pendant light fixtures. Pinterest perfect tiny homes have convinced people that aesthetics come first. They do not. Aesthetics come dead last. The priority order is foundation, structure, roof, weatherproofing, insulation, basic electrical, Then, and only then, interior finishes. If you spend your budget making the inside look beautiful before the roof is properly sealed, you are decorating a building that will rot from the outside in. A structure with plain plywood walls and a solid waterproof roof will keep you warm and dry for years. A structure with gorgeous reclaimed barn wood walls and a leaky roof will be a pile of mold within 18 months. Build the bones first. Make it pretty later. Those are 10 lessons from the most resourceful builders on the planet, and 5 mistakes that cost people thousands of dollars every year. The common thread through all of it is simple. Start small, start scrappy, use what you have, and build something that actually works before you worry about making it look good. So now you know the building principles that professional contractors charge thousands to apply, and the 5 mistakes that have ended more tiny home projects than any lack of skill ever has. The free Veteran's Blueprint in the description puts all of this into a step-by-step checklist you can take to your build site this weekend. And if you want to see what a full tiny home build looks like from the first shovel of gravel to a finished roof, that video is on screen right now.